So what's been one of the hardest things about starting Stan?
Oh, definitely hiring, without a doubt.
Yeah. And why was that?
You have no idea what you're doing when you first start a company. And to try to convince another human being to join you on this really early stage idea, and then also vet if they're even the right fit for the company, is just insanely difficult. So I figured actually today, as we head into the office, I'm gonna teach you guys step by step how I made my very first hires, as well as we're actually gonna interview some of my very first hires and ask them what on earth convinced them to quit their stable, well-paying jobs to come join me when my startup idea was just a very early stage idea and super risky. So there are 3 key steps to hiring. Step number 1 is actually finding great talent. So like, where do you actually source great people from? And then how do you actually convince them to talk to you? And then that leads you to step number 2, which is how do you actually vet great talent? Specifically, the hard thing about interviewing is figuring out how you tell the difference between a good candidate or a solid candidate and a really great stellar candidate. And then the last step is how do you actually convince great talent who can have any job they want to come join you? Because your number 1 job as a founder or an entrepreneur is to learn how to sell the company's vision and get people behind you. So let's dive into step number 1. So there are 3 main ways that I get in contact with really great talent. And the third one that I'll actually show you is probably the one we use the most. But the first one is how I started, which is what I call the friend method, which basically is you ask all of your smartest friends or mentors for introductions to their smartest friends, and you vet those people on whether or not they're a good fit. So I actually found my co-founder this way, where I was talking to so many people about the fact that I was looking for my first hires that one of our mutual customers introduced us. And through that process, basically, I got to meet so many other great candidates, because every person you meet is someone who's vouched for by someone who's smart or capable. And if you don't end up vibing with that person, they can still introduce you to even more people. And so what I did when I first started was I took my phone, and I just started scrolling through my contacts, and I just started writing a message of like, hey, like, you know, I'm working on this thing, I'm looking for these kinds of people. Do you happen to know anyone out there? And I basically just sent that to hundreds of people I knew and just begged them for some sort of connection. And over time, if you persist on that, you actually end up meeting really fantastic people. But one thing that I realized as we were trying to hire more people was that in this first method, I wasn't thinking about scale. And basically what I mean by that is you can either spend your time messaging one person, or you can spend that same amount of time trying to figure out a way to communicate to hundreds, if not thousands of people. So basically, to get the word out about Stan, I just started posting about all of our job opportunities on like every online community I could possibly think of. So when we were making our first engineering hires, I started to think about where do engineers hang out online. So I started posting on different engineering subreddits. I started joining Discord chats. I started working with affinity groups like Women in Tech. And through that process, I actually found something that I found even more fun myself, which was actually telling our story on social media. So y'all, look at this video I made that went like decently viral, where I just started standing around New York City with a cardboard sign that said "We're hiring," where I told our story as a startup and who we were actually looking for. And it actually ended up being a fun way to get people to actually know about Stan, and we got tons of inbound applications from this. And so when I think about y'all going out and using social media to build your brands and to build your company mission, it's really gonna be about just raising up your phone, telling your story like, hey, I'm on this mission. If you're interested at all, like, come join or like come DM me. And that in and of itself, just like putting yourself out there, is gonna help you get exposure to lots of great candidates. Now, all of that leads me to our last method, which is our tried and true method that we do the most, which is actually just going buck wild on LinkedIn. AKA, I just put together a list of all of our legacy competitors and started reaching out to all of their employees. And this is actually how I made my first ever business hire, Alyssa, who's our head of creator success, where I basically just sent a ton of connections on LinkedIn, where I gave a short intro to who I was and what I was doing. And then I said, hey, we're looking for this kind of role. Does this excite you? If it does, I'd love to chat. And that's actually how we've made most of our recent hires, is actually sending hundreds of outbounds. By the way, you get ghosted a ton or rejected, but eventually you're gonna meet the right person. Also, quick pro tip, some of the best companies to target are actually late stage startups. So successful ones like a DoorDash or an Airbnb, because the employees there that have been there for a while since the early days have already made their money and are looking for their next early stage opportunity. So one really cool mental model to think about is how in this process, you're actually evolving as an entrepreneur, where when you first start your company, you're just trying to sell customers on your product, right? You're trying to get people to actually use your business. And over time, as you're more successful, now in order to scale your business, you're not selling customers so much. In this case, you're selling people on joining your mission to actually go sell your customers for you to scale your business over time. So now you actually have a couple people responding to you, potentially interested in getting to work with you. But you can't actually take your foot off the gas just yet, because this is the place where a lot of people start slipping up and making mistakes. And this brings us to step number 2, which is how do you vet if a candidate is truly the perfect fit for you? And when I think about the number one mistake that I was making when I first started hiring was I was hiring out of convenience, aka I was so desperate for help, I was like, please someone help me, as opposed to being super thoughtful about whether or not this candidate was truly the best fit for the job, aka whether or not they were truly even better than me. And so I'm actually just gonna walk you through our entire interview process of how we truly vet a candidate and really discern whether or not that candidate is a top 1% talent. And this process actually breaks down to 3 components that actually matches up with 3 different documents. So that first component is your values, aka what are the qualities you care about in a candidate? And that matches up with your hiring rubric, because then on top of that, you then need to establish your needs, aka what does this job actually need to be responsible for? And then lastly, you have to bake the candidate into this decision-making process, which is vetting their talent or coming up with a question list. And so I figured the best way to actually show you this process is live, because we're actually bringing in a candidate for a final round interview in just an hour. So I'm gonna pull in one of my teammates, Lauren, who's actually running this process, and we'll walk you through how we're using all of these different process documents. Come in. Come squeeze in.
Okay.
We are here with
Lauren. Hi, everyone. I'm the Creator Partnerships Manager here at Stan.
Awesome. Lauren, we're about to make a huge hiring decision today.
Yes.
What are we hiring for?
We are hiring for someone else to join the partnerships team. They're responsible for activating ambassadors, bringing them onto the program, and maintaining them throughout their time.
Cool. So basically like taking care of our top creators.
Exactly.
So basically what we do here is we just have 2 sets of different criteria in which we're evaluating new candidates. So we have the values fit, the warmth, the depth, the mission alignment. And then the other part here is the technical fit, like the functional fit, right? So basically what we do before we even set out on this interview process is we define these core values around what we want to look for in this hire. We also define like, how do you exemplify that core value? And like, there's like a score with that.
Totally.
And then that allows us to go thoughtfully into this hiring process to know what we're looking for, especially because we do this last part, is we just like sit here and visualize like what a dream hire looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, what does the dream hire for the CPM role look like?
Passion for the creator space. With that, a deep understanding of what creators need, and that every creator that you meet here at Stan is going to be different. I always say that we're like a mosaic of a ton of different types of creators, and a ton of enthusiasm and just excitement that you can relay to them on the phone. And I also think 2 key values is just having warmth and depth, being excited and warm, showing up for them in a great capacity on the phone, and then also having like a deep understanding of what they need and really understanding that, having that empathy.
I love that. The other things I would add for this one is like, they love coaching people, they love seeing people succeed.
Totally.
And they also, I think the thing we've been looking for, and hopefully we'll find it today in making our final decision, is like someone we sit down with and you just like immediately get good energy from.
100%.
So.
You want to get along with them. That'd be awkward. Sorry.
What are some red flags around interviews?
They don't make eye contact with me on the phone.
Yeah.
They don't have an understanding of what Stan is.
Oh yeah, do your research before.
Yep. And just overall excitement and enthusiasm. If I can't tell that you're excited about this role, then how are you going to relay that excitement to the folks that we're chatting with on a daily basis?
Totally. And Lauren, what else should people do?
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Yay.
I didn't pay her to say that whatsoever. So as Lauren heads into this final round interview, what she's done is she's listed out all of our values and all of our technical requirements, as well as sub-questions per value that she can actually ask this candidate to diligence whether or not this candidate actually meets our bar. The other thing about this interview process is we've really lived by the truism of hire slow, fire fast, where we've actually met with this candidate now 5 times, because we just want to be super intentional about anyone else we bring on, because what we recognize is like, you're not actually just hiring this candidate, you're hiring not only them, but the 30 to 50 people that maybe they hire over time as well. But the hard part here is even if you find someone that you end up being sold on, you actually have to sell them on joining you. And this leads us to our last step, which is how do you pitch your company? And in the beginning, this is so hard because you're just this tiny startup and you have no idea if you're gonna make it. You're also struggling to keep everything afloat. And now on top of that, you've got to convince someone to join your vision, to take a bet. And so I figured the best way to teach you on how to sell a candidate and what a candidate actually cares about is actually, I'm gonna pull in Alyssa, our head of creative success, first ever business hire, and actually ask her what about Stan back in the early days when we were nothing was so exciting for her that she left her stable job at a larger competitor to actually come take a risk on us.
There she is. She's feeling nervous, I can tell. I just saw her move her seat. Hi Alyssa, how are you?
How are you?
So Alyssa, what do you do here at Stan?
I am heading up the creator success team.
So when we first started interviewing, Stan was nothing,
Yep.
right? It was just like, hey, come join. So what possibly convinced you to quit your super stable job to come take a bet on Stan?
I think there was a couple of things.
Okay.
One was I just enjoyed talking with you. Two was your finance background, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
That was really important because I feel like you hear about startups failing and it's really risky. Even going through interviews right now, that's one of the top concerns of candidates. And knowing that you could talk through the financials and that I know that you wouldn't get us in a bad position was huge. So that was honestly one of the big ones. And I think the last one was, I think we during our interview process shared a moment. I'm pretty sure I got emotional, and I think it was talking about helping other people,
Yeah.
and I could sense that you had that same passion. It wasn't a fake salesy conversation, it was genuine. So I think those were the top ones for me.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. So it was mission alignment.
Yep.
Also, it sounds like de-risking the
Yes,
business.
100%.
So it's almost the opposite of think about startup upside is obvious.
Yeah.
So it's de-risking. And then the first one is we just
We just vibed.
vibe.
Yeah.
Other than what you said, I think the main thing that I'm realizing is a consistent thing for anyone who wants to join a startup and how you win against a bigger company that's more stable is bigger companies are kind of boring.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of ownership either. Whereas here, you come in, you own our entire customer
Yeah.
success experience, and you get to build, you get to make a real impact. And I think that's probably the common theme that unites all of our most successful hires. There's just been this desire to just go make an impact,
Yeah.
run fast. So yeah. So as we head out for the day, I want to leave you guys with one of my favorite quotes that I've been sitting with recently, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this has actually been one of the toughest growth areas for me, where I'm actually weakest is in learning these soft skills of what does it mean to manage a team or lead an organization, these things that feel really abstract. And so I'm honestly just kind of learning as I go. And so if you're at all looking to learn how to lead an organization or build a $1 billion company, then I'd love to have you follow along the journey and we can just learn together. So I'll see you later.